pump may overflow. And so any freestanding water there in that area may be contaminated with sewage. That's an urgent situation. And a precautionary boil water notice in effect right now in Hallandale Beach. This is for the DeSoto Park area. We're talking specifically about 501, 601, 701, 801 and 851 Three Island Boulevard. That is taking place until further notice, and the city of Hallandale Beach should reach out to me on Twitter saying that this is limited to the DeSoto Park South condominiums if you're looking for more specificity with that boil water advisory.
We're going to bring you all the details about the roads to just keep you safe. You're not supposed to be out there at all, but I just want people to know there's an entire tree that has fallen into the southbound side of Palm Avenue. That's near the intersection of Pines Boulevard. For those of you who are in the Pines, I know you live in the Pines, that's right near City Hall. So that's the location we're talking about. And that tree is in the way. People are having to drive around it and get around it, but nobody should be driving at this point. It's just too dangerous. But we want to keep you up to date on everything that's happening out there. So those are the details we're getting from our reporters.
And reiterating why no one should be out there, we got an update and an urgent message from the Broward Sheriff's Office this morning saying they're not going to put their first responders, their officers, their deputies at risk here. We are certainly past the point where we are seeing some of those tropical storm force winds. And even with 911 calls, we wanted to make it clear, a 911 call to Broward Sheriff's Office at this hour is going to be dealt with on a case-by-case basis.
Also, we were talking about the Keys and how we are under the gun right now. There are no staff members, not a single Monroe County staff member is at any of those last resort shelters. Those were opening the doors at the last minute to take anybody who had not evacuated and changed their mind at that last hour. So those people are in the shelters, but we do not have Monroe County staff, so we know that they are on their own right there. So it just goes to show you, everybody is either unavailable, inside, evacuated. Nobody's going to go out during this storm. As soon as those tropical storm force winds are affecting, that's why you have BSO no longer patrolling. And then once there's hurricane force winds, you're not going to see anybody until this storm passes and those winds subside. So this could be a long time. We've been talking about possibly 40 hours in some spots dealing with those tropical storm force winds. So we know if the Keys are getting it as bad as they are, Florida City is our first location that we can get to a reporter to see exactly what the experience is like there. We have Janice Fernandez. Let's go ahead and bring her in and see what's happening in that location.
Well, JC and Eric, we were actually in the hallway of our hotel, and actually the power went off last night. Now, we are the early morning crew, so we really didn't get a lot of sleep last night because the power kept going on and off, and then finally, earlier this morning, the power was completely gone. So I'm standing by a window, but I don't want you to be concerned. This is a hurricane impact window, otherwise we would not be standing so close to it. And we're going to try our best to show you what's going on outside. Our Ian Margles obviously outside experience the elements, but here we're able to get really that second floor view, and you can see the stop sign is just going back and forth in the wind, obviously seeing a whole lot of rain at this point, and the trees just continue to sway back and forth. Now, what we're not able to show you or really able to allow you to hear is the wind just howling. It kept all of us up all night long because the wind was just so loud. It really was quite incredible. And actually in my room, I'm by two windows. This window is actually near my room, so I got to hear a lot of the impacts of the storm. So looking there now, you can see the stop signs sort of going back and forth in the wind, and this is actually not as powerful as we've seen it. Now I want you to go ahead and walk with me, Mario. I'm going to walk inside my room so we can get another vantage point because we have a window in the room now. Our rooms are actually working. We actually had a safety meeting with the staff here at the hotel. They told us that it's all battery operated, which is great because the power, as you know, came out. You can see that our room is very, very dark at this time, so good thing our room keys still work. That's actually something I learned from our veteran reporters. Always make sure you can get in and out of your room if the power goes out. Going ahead here, I actually have a tree right next to my window in my hotel room, and you can definitely see it swaying back and forth. Again, we're working to get some lights here. We have very limited lights to show you what's going on because, again, the power is out. But this is what I was hearing. I heard this tree just sort of knocking back and forth, and again, if we didn't have these hurricane impact windows, I probably would not have felt safe sleeping last night because, again, the wind was just howling and you can really hear what was going on outside. And some points, the rain was so hard, it almost sounded like needles just hitting the window. That's how hard the rain was coming down. So again, we lost all power in our hotel room. Our crews were all working the best we can to try to bring you as many reports as possible, but it's lights out. The water's still working, so that's always a good sign, and we are able to get in and out of our rooms. And JC and Eric, we're going to continue to bring you live reports as often as we can, but at some point, we're in conservation mode. We may have to sort of just power down for a little bit because until the power gets restored, we can't recharge all our equipment.
Okay, we understand that. Certainly, Janice Fernandez, thank you very much. Stay safe down there. We'll get back to you as soon as that is an option.
And she was talking quietly because people are sleeping in that hotel, or at least they're trying to, even with all those winds. But we're going to leave Janice and we're going to head on over towards Miramar Parkway. That's where we have Local 10's Bob Norman.
So beside me is something you've seen a lot in recent hours. It's a giant tree branch on the ground. The difference with this one is we're in the middle of Miramar Parkway, one of the busiest roads in Broward County, and we believe this branch blew off of a tree back that way. Now, if you can come around, Sam, look inside this mess here. We've got what looks like a piece of a car bumper. So we're unraveling a mystery here. Shoot over this way, Sam. You can see perhaps the rest of that bumper that blew over on the other side of the road. And now, follow me here. That looks like another bumper, possibly from the same car. We don't know if there was an accident here. It looks like there might have been an accident here, but it's certainly a warning for all drivers who are going to be on the road tomorrow that there are numerous hazards on these roads due to Irma. We've all got to be so careful tomorrow. Back to you.
Hey, Ross, thank you very much. Bob Norman. We also have Ross Palumbo as we show you on a split screen situation on what Hurricane Irma looks like right now as of the 2 a.m. advisory, a Category 4 barreling toward the Florida Keys.
Let's go to Ross Palumbo. He has been kind of watching everything developing along A1A in Fort Lauderdale.
Well, we're in Fort Lauderdale, right at the beach on A1A in Las Olas, and I wanted to show you the worst damage that we've seen so far. This awning above this yogurt shop simply ripped apart out here a little bit earlier. It's still just hanging in the wind, and that's not all we've seen. Coming off of several buildings, I want to show you this. These bird spikes that you see usually on windowsills and you see on the top of buildings so birds don't nest, these have been falling off left and right. They may not seem too dangerous, but when these things are moving 80 miles an hour, they could be a severe hazard. The winds have been strong, wind gusts going 40 to 50 miles an hour. Right now, they've calmed down a little bit, but I want to show you what the wind has been doing already. It's already creating these piles of sand all over the sidewalk. The good news is we're not seeing that much pooling water out here yet, and the sand doesn't appear to be clogging the drains. So A1A itself has not flooded, and we're not seeing any major puddles, so that's doing pretty well. Again, the wind gusts have been up and down, up and down. Right now we have a little bit of a lull. The rain has been coming down heavy at times. Right now, though, a little bit of a lull again. We understand from the authorities here that there hasn't been a single injury so far and no major service call. We have heard that BSO is not going to be coming out since wind speeds are so high, and we haven't seen any patrols going around here in this area in the last hour or so. When it comes to Fort Lauderdale Police, we haven't seen them out on patrol, or Fort Lauderdale Fire Department. They haven't been out here either, but they haven't been out here. Neither has anyone else. That's the good news. Again, it is a mandatory evacuation area down here, and the mandatory curfew went into effect at 4 p.m. on Saturday. So the good news is no injuries and no one down here, except, of course, for us. We'll bring you the latest as it happens. For now, though, that is the very latest from Fort Lauderdale Beach. Back to you.
When you see awnings gone in just the lightest of the winds that we're going to experience, it's going to get bad.
Just the beginning of what we will see here in South Florida. We have Leanne Morajon. She was at South Point Park in Miami Beach with some of the conditions she's seeing there.
Well, we're here on Miami Beach, right next to South Point Park. Of course, we know the famed Joe Stone Crab is here, Smith and Walensky as well. What we're feeling now is some gustier, some stronger wind, and some more rain falling down. You can see the trees whipping. The types of things we've seen is that these winds are strong enough to knock pieces of the palm trees down. Some larger branches have snapped off, taking spots on the roadway. We've also seen sort of these this ponding. We know that the street drains that are here seem to be full, and so we have this accumulation of water right here. Not widespread, but at some points on the streets you might see something like this. We haven't seen barely anyone out on the streets. There's been a curfew in place since 7 p.m. will be lifted at 7 a.m. But we do know that these conditions are expected to last through Sunday. We are not over yet, folks. More of these conditions and worsening conditions expected throughout Sunday. Of course, our weather authority meteorologists are going to stay right on top of that. But the conditions here on Miami Beach, certainly gusty, definitely rainy, and getting rainier. We'll continue to watch it for you.
Okay, Leanne, thank you. We are having a very busy day, not just with the hurricane warnings, but now tornado watches as well.
Yeah, let's go over all the warnings and watches and everything that all of our residents need to be aware of as Irma comes ashore. We have Luke, we have Julie. They are in our weather center going over all those details right now. And we're all ears because we've already had 2 tornadoes touch down, one in Broward, one in Dade.
Yeah, we do have a tornado watch. It's in effect until noon today. So, and the greatest threat for the tornadoes is going to be away from that eye. So we're talking about the coastal metros. So it's something that we're watching. I don't want to make it sound like it's a widespread outbreak where everybody is going to be experiencing a tornado near you. But in some locations, we can get these brief spin-ups. We've already had them. Yeah. We may have more. So again, till noon there.
Just on that note, we did have the 2 tornadoes reported, Wilton Manors in Oakland Park and Homestead Motor Speedway. That was yesterday, last night, September 9th at 6:38 p.m. and at 7:20 p.m. It was a cluster of storms that did come on shore, those rain bands that are moving in from the western Atlantic, wrapping around the very massive and powerful Hurricane Irma. And speaking of, we are seeing currently some heavy rain, no tornado activity, but we are seeing some heavy rain.
Heavy rain, and a couple spots out in the Atlantic have a little bit of rotation, so we're keeping an eye on them. No warnings on them yet. So we have the tornado watch. We also, of course, have the hurricane warning that's in effect for parts of Florida. So with a tornado watch, hurricane warning, we also have a flood watch that is in effect. Julie, how long does that flood watch go? Is that
Monday until 8 p.m.
So the whole period, of course, inland flooding possible. We'd be dealing with the potential for 20 inches was the last I'd seen of isolated. Yes, not everybody will get that, but we could see widespread 8 to 12 inches of rain and isolated spots of up to 20. So the flood watch in effect. We also have the storm surge warning. So trying to go down the list here, that is for North Miami Beach south and wrapping all the way down to the Keys, and the southwest and western side of the peninsula is going to deal with some massive storm surge from this storm as well. In fact, if we take graphics 42, I'll show you the threat levels that we have on all of these. There it is. This is your potential storm surge impacts. We'll start with the extreme, which is the purple. That is from, let's see, it starts in the Keys, about the middle and lower Keys, and then it extends back toward mainland Monroe County, up into Collier County, and all the way up to about Fort Myers. So that's where they could in spots see 5 to 10 or even greater feet of storm surge. Now you go north of there, so we're looking at the upper Keys and into Miami-Dade. The threat level drops a little bit. In fact, let's show you some of the highlights here. And in fact, Broward County had been dropped from that storm surge warning, but we could still see at least a foot or two in a couple locations in Broward County. Moving southward, North Miami-Dade County, only up to about 2 feet as well. You're on the lower end, or moderate, we should say, for a storm surge there. But you go further south, deeper into Miami-Dade, North Miami Beach and southward, 3 to 5 feet is possible. That is a worst case scenario, by the way. I don't want to make it sound like everybody will get that. If you see your shading where you live, and where it's really shallow, toward Homestead as well, all the way up through Homestead and into the coastal regions of southeast Miami-Dade, that is also where we could have 3 to 5. But then it goes up to the next level, the high storm surge threat. That's for southern Miami-Dade Miami-Dade, also the Upper Keys, and then the extreme, of course, that's flooding where at worst case it could be over 9 feet above ground level. That is the middle and lower Keys that we have. Let's talk about rain a little bit as well. Julie, you touched on this a bit. Isolated 20 inches?
Yes, in some areas of Miami-Dade and Burr, but I also wanted to continue on your thought process with the sea levels that we were talking about rising. We don't want people to get confused that some of our reporters are right off the coast and they're seeing the waves crashing on shore because of the rain bands that are bringing very gusty winds, some wind gust, tropical storm force, and eventually maybe hurricane force wind gusts once the hurricane gets closer to us and makes landfall in the lower Keys. But we don't want you to be confused that if you see those choppy seas, it doesn't mean the sea level is rising.
Yes. Storm surge and waves, two completely different things. The storm surge does not account for waves. If you do get storm surge, waves would be on top of that. But if you don't get the storm surge, you could still have the waves.
Good. Yeah, I just want to make sure everybody knows that because our reporters have been saying, like right now, we have those the rain bands that are coming in Fort Lauderdale. I'm sure the rough surf is crashing along the shoreline.
Also, the inland flooding impacts. This is where we could, of course, again, have some storm surge. You know, that goes up into the rivers and canals as well. And on top of that, we're going to be seeing a lot of rain. So we already mentioned the possible isolated 20 inches, though most locations wouldn't see that much. You could see 8 to 12 in some locations. The wind potential, we're getting the wind, you know, to see these arcing transformers that we have up and down the East Coast metros. You know, in Fort Lauderdale, we've seen it in Miami, at least in those areas. So it's a moderate threat there, but the further to the west and to the south that you go, the closer to the core of the storm, it goes up to high and then extreme. So on the east, trees and power lines down. We've seen that already. We've seen signs that have been at least blown over or bending it backwards, awnings and things damaged like that. Mobile homes, of course, not a safe structure during high winds. And to the west, it goes up a level. Structural damage, destruction of mobile homes, and our highest concern, of course, is in the Keys. And that's where we have, of course, Hurricane Irma looking to make, as a Category 4 hurricane, a direct landfall. Before we get to that, just a second, we'll touch on our wind gusts. They are already in Key West at 72 miles per hour, but they're going to go up a whole lot more from there. So this is still not you're not in Category 4 strength winds yet. You are still on the middle to outer bands before that main eye wall comes your way. And that's the really extreme, intense part of that storm.
Yeah, and it's going to be destructive. We've been hearing from the National Hurricane Center that winds are expected to be Category 3 as it does make landfall. I wanted to show you the forecast cone so you can all see. If you haven't been joining us for the last couple hours, we'll jump over. Actually, that's a great shot of our Fort Lauderdale tower cam before we get to the forecast cone, because a lot of you have to understand it didn't change from last night at 11, but we do get intermediate updates. We got one at 3 o'clock. We will know the position of Hurricane Irma hour by hour before she makes landfall, or it makes landfall, and as it continues into the Gulf of Mexico. So as a Category 4 hurricane possibly making landfall in the lower Keys, we're talking winds of 130 miles per hour, gusts up to 150. It could be stronger in the next few hours as it's moving over the very warm waters of the Atlantic. Give or take, though, it is a major hurricane that our friends in the middle and the lower Keys will be dealing with. Landfall would be focused mainly on the lower Keys, but that whole area is just going to have to deal with hurricane force winds and rain.
Yes, and we have our Miami tower cam as well. It's being moved around. We're having some more activity in the East Coast metros as well. So Miami and up into Fort Lauderdale and beyond, our winds have picked up a little bit. We've seen more widespread, more persistent rain. I know that's a dark shot, but you can at least see how it's being jostled around a bit. Let's check out our wind gusts again. For those of us that are still up or up early this morning, we're getting 50+ mile per hour wind gusts. We see 54 in Kendall. We've lost our measurement in Homestead, Fort Lauderdale as well. There we go. There's some of the, okay, this is our wind gusts that we have. These are current, by the way, or they update hourly. So only within about 5 till the hour is when these update. So in between those observations, you'll get some bursts. But this gives you a general idea of what's been experienced. Somewhere around 40 to 50, even 54 miles per hour right now in Kendall. Those are going to go up. So let's go out to the radar and take a look. Let's see how far. Julie, maybe you can measure this out for us. Key West is from that approaching eye wall.
It looks like, too, the National Weather Service is stating that we do have some water spouts developing just offshore, by Broward and West Palm Beach that are approaching the coast. So we actually could be seeing some rotation if you guys want to take GFX 41 closer to home. So that's something we also need to be focused on. Those isolated shower, scattered heavy rainfall that's just offshore, we need to continue to keep our eyes on, because we are going to see the possibility of tornadic activity. So let's measure that out and see how far the eye wall is. This is just about where the heaviest rain and wind is. We'll see. It looks as though if it were to go straight to Key West, about 32 miles right now, give or take. I probably could have went a little bit further. But again, we talked about how the National Hurricane Center is stating that hurricane force winds extend out from the center 70 miles. You just mentioned that we saw the gust of hurricane force winds for the Keys. Our friends at Marathon will be dealing with the same hurricane gust, and the hurricane gust would be expected in the middle and the lower Keys right now.
Yeah, slow mover. It's last report that we had that 3 a.m. Intermediate advisory. I believe it was still north-northwest at 6 miles per hour. So that's going to put us in a landfall somewhere around 8, maybe just a hair sooner. We'll see. It is expected to at some point pick up a bit of speed, but a direct impact, a direct landfall on the middle and lower Keys from Hurricane Irma. So moving northwestward, all the fury of a Category 4 hurricane. Last we checked, winds to 130 miles per hour sustained, gusts beyond 150 miles per hour. So that's as of the last update. And this did strengthen once it got off the north shore of Cuba somewhat rapidly, though that was not a surprise because the conditions here are just absolutely perfect for a strong hurricane. And the fact that it made it to a Category 4 doesn't surprise us, and it also would not surprise us if it continued to increase its wind speed as it approached the middle and lower Keys. Brace yourselves if you can hear us for that. We do have those, the National Weather Service was talking about.
Yeah,
we were looking at these earlier off the Atlantic waters.
Tornado warning is now in effect for Broward and Palm Beach, so we'll have to pull that up for you. The National Weather Service is stating that cluster of showers that they were just mentioning should possibly have the opportunity of tornadic activity. There we go. We're going to highlight that. We're going to zoom in, see if we can get the velocity going over there.
Yeah, I'll see if I can pull that in.
See where those actual cells are. Again, if you are watching us right now in Broward, we have a tornado warning in effect for West Palm Beach down towards Boca Raton, in towards cities right like here, Deerfield Beach, Pompano Beach, Lauderdale by the Sea. It looks like it might be by Lauderdale by the Sea, Oakland Park, Fort Lauderdale, all the way into Fort Lauderdale Airport. If you're watching us on I-95, 441, the Turnpike, US 1, all of those areas, you're dealing with the possibility of a tornado coming out of these showers and storms that are moving onshore right now. This is the same area that the National Weather Service indicated that just offshore they spotted a funnel cloud in the Broward, West Palm Beach area. So that's why we're continuing to keep you posted, because this is some serious stuff. Tornado warning for multiple signatures located in this area from West Palm Beach for Broward. So again, we have the great tools right in front of us that we're trying to find out which actual area could be affected with the rotation that they're seeing.
Guys, if you could take graphics 42, I know that this may not look like much to you.
But to us, it's big.
What this tells us is the winds that are moving toward and away from the radar, and where you see green meeting red, that's where we have some circulation, some rotation, and these are subtle. These are kind of soft signatures. They're difficult to pick out, but where you see green meeting red, basically is where you could be having some rotation and thus a possible tornado. And we of course want to look for the stronger ones, but what stands out to me are a couple of spots. One is right through here in Fort Lauderdale, probably more toward this leading edge. So you mentioned Lauderdale by the Sea,
Oakland Park.
Oakland Park, yeah, some of those locations, west side of Fort Lauderdale. Maybe even like North Hollywood. Some of it's broad rotation. I don't see anything here that is super intense, but it's enough on a day like today to produce at least a brief tornado that could cause some damage. So that's one spot that I see. Right behind it too, get ready Fort Lauderdale. You see this little patch? This is just east of downtown Fort Lauderdale, where in some spots you have the green meeting the red. That's that rotation. This could produce some tornadoes. Do you have a report for us there, Erica? Let's take a look and see what she has.
We also have Stanella Sabovic. She's on the phone under the tornado warning. Northeast Broward County is under this tornado warning. We're being told that dangerous storms near Boynton Beach, Delray Beach, Ocean Ridge, over Palm Beach, also going into Tamarack, Wellington, Margate, Lighthouse Point, North Lauderdale, around 410. Coral Springs, Deerfield Beach, Coconut Creek. So actually we can time this out too and follow these storms to see if they'll be in your neighborhood.
We will do that.
Let's talk to Sanella. How's it going, Sanella? Where are you?
Good morning, Julie. I am in East Fort Lauderdale by Federal Highway and Davie, and you talk about that tornado. I just got the alert on my phone that it'll expire around 4:15, and boy, I can tell you, as the morning is progressing, and you guys can't see a slide because we still need to establish a signal. We can't raise our masts in these conditions, but
no, you don't.
You will be seeing us soon, I promise. But a lot of winds, Julie and Luke, a lot of gusty winds here, palm fronds scattered everywhere, and the winds, they just howl. And the rain is coming down steady and hard. The rains have been off and on, but now they're just coming down very steady, very hard, and the visibility is very low.
Sanella, please tell me that you're taking cover. You're in an interior room. You're at the lowest floor of a sturdy building. You're also not near the windows, right?
Yes, of
That's
course.
what we're telling all of our viewers to do right now in this tornado warning area.
Yeah,
yes, definitely.
Where are you again? I know you said Sanella, but tell me again exactly where you are. I'm looking at it on the radar where we can see the rotation.
Fort Lauderdale, in between Davie and Broward Boulevard.
Okay.
East Fort Lauderdale.
Okay. Let's see if we can find that, because I do see between Davie and you said Broward Boulevard.
Yes.
Okay. There's Broward Boulevard. So you're somewhere. I kind of have an idea where you are. Sanella, what's the other cross street?
US 1 Federal Highway and Davie.
Okay, yeah, we see where you are. Yeah, there's a storm that's right behind you. It's still out in the Atlantic. The tornado threat for you and your specific location right now has dropped just a hair from what I can tell anyway. But right behind an area of rotation that is in front of you is another area that's going to move in off the Atlantic. So you have it on both sides. You have it in front of you, you have it behind you. So heads up there. And basically what the National Weather Service has done is picked a big area that anywhere along, all the way up from Delray, down through pretty much all of Broward County, where you see these little patches. If you're watching on TV, I know that you can't see the Sanella. This is where we could have quick spin-ups. So be ready for that, Sanella. Be in a safe place. If you're listening to this and you're under the tornado warning, maybe we can go back to graphics 41 and show the better view of the tornado warning. And if you're under this tornado warning, just heads up, it's tough for us to pinpoint exactly the cross street where that tornado would be, but all through this area it could happen. There's rotation all along this line.
Right, and the other thing I was just showing is under this tornado warning just offshore, I'm really highlighting, as we can only do here on Local 10 News because we have this technology, there is the storm tracks that are just being picked up offshore, and that rotation is being pulled from the Western Atlantic and coming onshore. That's why the National Weather Service is stating, hey, heads up, you need to seek shelter. There is that possibility of some tornadic activity because it's just offshore and it's expected to come onshore. Some very strong storms that are headed towards the northeast. So that's why they are highlighting such a broad area, as Luke had mentioned, that could be affected by these tornadoes. Again, we want you to make sure you take your time to find the interior room in your home, to the lowest floor of a sturdy of your building, and make sure you avoid the windows. I know, like Sanella said, it sounds like a freight train. It's howling. The winds are howling. It's windy. Again, we can get through this. We'll get through these conditions. It's just something we're going to have to deal with these outer bands of the system. Like we mentioned, we had tornadoes already reported from Oakland Park down towards southern Miami-Dade. So right now it looks as though Broward and West Palm Beach, actually the focus right as these bands are moving in, but I wouldn't be surprised if we see some more as this eye is about to make landfall over Key West. And as you can see on the middle of your screen, we have, I think that's Fort Lauderdale Tower Cam. You can barely even see outside because it's so rainy and windy.
And Julie, we have Laren. He's in Hollywood, right near the Broadwalk, also under that tornado warning. He's on the phone.
Right, and we got here not too long ago, and we were just trying to set up our live truck, get tuned in, and all of a sudden the phone starts to buzz, and you get that warning, and then your heart jumps because we're all very antsy because there's a hurricane that we're monitoring and reporting on, and so you're like, what is that? And then you realize, oh, here's another concern, and so we got back into the truck, contacted the station producers, et cetera, And so now we're just trying to make sure that we stay safe while we tell you kind of what we're seeing here. I will tell you, when we got here yesterday, it was calm. There was no rain. The wind was heavy, and of course, it got much heavier throughout the day. When we got here this morning, these palm trees were leaning. The rain was blowing sideways and is still blowing sideways. The street, not flooded, but lots of ponding and pooling of water here. And we actually came down from Dania Beach here to the Hollywood Broad Walk. Again, we're at Polk Street, and we went up to Dania, and the water there, I will tell you, we're close to high tide, maybe at high tide. Excuse me. The water was almost to the parking lot, as in there was sand and seaweed blowing into the parking lot, and there was lots of water flooding in the parking lot. And the surf was just intense. It was extremely rough, and even in the dark of night, you could see the white cap of that water as those winds were pushing that water closer and closer to, I guess beyond the shoreline, I guess is the best way to say that. And I've never seen anything like that when it came to that particular location. We've been to Dania Beach a number of times, but the water had never been that close to the parking lot. So this is a serious situation. In fact, my photographer, when we got here, he went out to the Broad Walk to kind of scope things out, and he took a video. He had to kind of hunker down in the corner of a building there. He was kind of covered up, and he took the video there. He said that was the only spot I could get that wasn't inundated with rainwater and wind.
Hey, Larry, let me ask you a question real quick, if I can. Larry, can I ask you a question? You said you were on the Broad Walk there in Hollywood. Did you get a notification on your device or phone that you were under tornado warning?
We did.
Okay, because we know that Luke and Julie have been showing the box for what the National Weather Service says are the areas likely to be impacted.
I tweeted it out. What we got.
So that's interesting.
Because technically, you're not in the box for that tornado warning. But we all are getting the alert. So we just wanted to make sure we gave the right information, because we thought you were in the tornado warning, but technically you are just south, just outside that box, which means the immediate possibility of that rotation is not in your area. But that's our big concern right now, is tornadic activity. If we can go ahead and pop up that box again, because you can't really see anything at all with this picture. Let's pop up the tornado box. And our weather team has been telling us, is the north side Pompano Beach and the south side Fort Lauderdale?
It goes all the way up to Delray.
Delray.
Yeah.
Okay. So
and I basically timed out a couple of the cells we think might be the ones that could spark the possibility of tornadic activity, because it's actually occurring just offshore. So it looks as though Pompano Beach, Deerfield Beach, you'll see this rotation possibly in your neighborhood if it holds at 433. We're looking at possibly 443, Coconut Creek. This is a long line of some very heavy rain. But again, I'm glad you guys did clear that up, because according to the National Weather Service, they're stating that the areas that are under the tornado warning is northeastern Broward and southeastern Palm Beach. And that includes the areas of Tamarack, Wellington, Margate, Lighthouse Point, North Lauderdale, Coral Springs, Deerfield Beach, Coconut Creek, Parkland, Boca Point, also Boca Del Mar, Mission Bay, Hamptons at Boca, and it looks as though Whisper Walk until 4:15. So I don't want people to get confused. I'm sure, Laren, you're definitely dealing with some very heavy rain. I know you're dealing with some very heavy rain, so I just wanted to make everybody know that no matter what, we do have some very strong storms that are just offshore where Laren was, but those are not the storms that we're watching for tornadic activity or rotation that the National Weather Service is indicating on Doppler radar. So let's go over to Luke, because we actually have the velocity map that could show an area we might think could be one of the...
This is moving very quickly. Of course, we're dealing with rain bands from a hurricane. These are swinging around very fast, and they're going to come on you fast, they're going to leave you fast, and that means that it's moving more. Right now, we do still have a little bit over Fort Lauderdale, but quickly it's going to move off the coast and more towards some of our inland communities, more of our, as you get a little bit further inland. So I've highlighted, pretty much just know anywhere at the leading edge of that red is where we could see a quick spin up. I'll be interested to see if the National Weather Service extends this warning. I don't see as strong of a signal as I did previously, but it is still there. So let's highlight a couple of the communities and time this out for you just a bit. Within really the next 4 or so minutes, Coconut Creek, Margate within about 5 to 10. Similar story for Coral Springs, about 4:15. Beyond that, we go to Terrytown if it does hold together, which I don't think it's going to stick together all that long. So that's one spot. Now we'll go to the leading edge just a little bit further south just to get some more timing for you in some different communities that we have. And then we'll go just one more time south. So Gulf Estates, it's basically on top of you. North Lauderdale, about 10 minutes or less, about 20 minutes into Coral Springs if that edge were to hold. So some more similar locations there. And then I'll go down to the very far, it's really weakening, I must say, but just for the side of safety, I'm going to look at this very leading edge down here and moving northwest, again, about 30 miles per hour. I'm going to include Weston in this. So let's see if we can get a time when it may arrive in Weston. So about 10 to 15 minutes in Weston. If that rotation holds, I must say at this point I do see some weakening there, but there is more that's out off the Atlantic, so we're gonna have to keep an eye on that.
Yeah, because this will be something that'll be what we're talking about at least for the next 6 hours or so because of the activity moving in off the western Atlantic. Again, this tornado warning goes until 4:15 for you watching us. If you guys can take GFX 41. Once again, this includes tornadic activity possible, FAU, South Campus, Fort Lauderdale Beach, Boca West, Hillsborough Pines, and like I had mentioned earlier, Coral Springs, Deerfield Beach, Coconut Creek, Parkland. All of you need to be in an interior room in your home. Stay away from the windows. As you take GFX 41, you will see the highlighted area. Once again, that is our tornado warning. We need to make sure you guys are understanding that you need to be inside an interior room. Make sure you do have yourself well aware of what's going on in your house. Make sure you know where your items are. Do you have a mattress by you? Do you have pillows? Make sure you're being prepared because this tornadic activity is expected to last with us as we see the band of Hurricane Irma continue. And speaking of Hurricane Irma, we just got the new update of actually how far away Irma is, and it looks as though it's still winds are at 130 miles per hour. It's still moving to the northwest at 6 miles per hour. It looks as though they are reporting wind gusts in Key West International Airport of up to 73 miles per hour as Irma is bearing down on the lower Keys. So again, this is all because of Irma and the system that is expected to head towards the lower Keys, making landfall in the matter of a few hours. The other thing I want to remind you too is that as the system continues to move more towards the northwest, we're going to continue to be under the threat for heavy rain and gusty winds and once again tornadic activity. That's why we do have that tornado watch box in effect. So the 4 a.m. advisory is in. Wind still 130, gust 150, pressure 928 millibars, moving northwest at 6 miles per hour. But then I want to bring you back to the attention of the tornado warning.
Did pressure drop? Was it at 928 for the last one?
Yes.
I think it's
so
dropping,
it did drop.
which is a sign of strengthening, by the way.
Yes. Let's go back to the tornado watch box.
So the watch, for just so everyone's clear, a watch, of course, means conditions are favorable all through this area as we go through noon today. And I say all this area, we're talking the Keys.